The word tree means is the only Polish language.
Oh, really?
Yes. Every other language is poto.
That's crazy.
So that kind of arrogance of a country people. Also, as I grew older and the way I was discriminated against because my father spoke a Num made me develop that kind of nationalistic feeling towards the Num language.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the ASC podcast with your host Nanama. Today I have a very special guest here. We're going to have a very lovely conversation, and so I would allow him to introduce himself. Hi, Prof.
Hello, Nanama. Obiri Ado is my name, but if you want to connect me with my soul and my creator's link, then I am Kwajo. Kwajo, male born on Monday, but it's my soul name, not my day name, as young people want to think. My soul name, believing it among the accounts that you always come to the world with your name. And the family meets after a week to give you your given name. Mm-hmm. But again, being so westernized, you take your father's name.
Yeah.
And I've always been fighting that because if you're a girl, you take your father's name, and then when you get married, you take your husband's name, which is going backward, but that's another conversation.
Okay. My name is Nanama. As I said, my soul name is Ama. And my given name, they just added Nana to it. So Nana Ama Akono, that's my father's name. Yeah. So today's conversation is one which our team thought was very essential and very necessary to be had because Ghana is an oral space. And there's so many conversations which we are not having with the elderly who know so much more about what's happened in this country. And I feel like that is a cause of maybe the lack of patriotism among the youth now. People don't really regard the nation as like something to really be proud of. And I think this was a discourse at a time that those who live in the diaspora are more proud of being from here because of the symbols and the things they can connect with, but the people here, for various reasons, for various valid reasons, aren't as proud. So I just wanted us to have this conversation to kind of capture the lens you were looking at Ghana through when you were younger, because things were different then, things are different now. And there are conversations you can be having with your grandparents, your older parents, older aunties and uncles, to really unearth what the nation used to be and what the nation can be, because it's the same people. And in those conversations, maybe there's pride to be found, there's identity that was lost to be found. So yeah, that's why we have you here today.
Thank you, Nanama. I hear two words that I want to piggyback my conversation on. Number one, pride. And number two, identity. My identity today comes from the pride I have from the way I grew up and where I grew up. My parents, raised in a small village. It is not even on the map. The village was called Nyame Bechere.
Okay.
God will provide. But my father built his own village near the village. And guess how he called it? Mofram Fadwin. Young people should take reason.
Yeah.
Young people should be thoughtful. Growing up, my father being the youngest of his line of siblings, paternally and maternally. And I happen to be the last of my maternal siblings. Okay. Coming from a dual heritage, the Guan heritage. Many people don't even know about the Guans in Ghana here, but the Guans are thought to be the original settlers here.
Okay.
And so they are spread all over Ghana. Some of the people, Guans are the Ifutu, Winneba, they are Guans.
Okay.
Late, Dukrom, Ukugwa, all the mountains here. And unfortunately, once you come from the mountains, you are Kwapim. No. There are Guans and they are Kwapim. My father come from the Guan and Nungwan side. Those who crossed the Volta and settled along the Volta following the Asante expansions. And my mother is Kwau from Kwetia, the mountains. Konaku in the mountains, you're going down, so you're going to go to die. And so with this dual heritage, my mother died quite early, at the age of around 4. So my father virtually raised me. But he raised me on the dual heritage. What do I mean by that? His nephew happened to be the chief of one of the sub-chiefs of Kwawu Bukrua, where they say Jasi in the divisions of Kwawu based on their Kwamu tutelage. They have the vanguard, the right guard, the left, but the Jasi is more or less interior military wing.
Okay.
I remember at the age of 9, as soon as school was over, in those days you wouldn't have a collar, maybe not in the underweay. A collar, they call collar around your one piece of cloth.
Okay, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Your collar. Very good. Put me on a truck. There was a lorry from their front plains, that dirt road, bone shaker. And then you go to Sale, the chief, just Hinana Young Cancer, the first.
Okay.
I was privileged to see how the royal court functioned. Whenever he sat in state, I sat in front of him, the okra, the soul. And the conversations are done when people come to settle the issues. From my father's village, who eventually became, because he founded a village, became the head of the village, as it were. So the heritage grows out of the knowledge and the wisdom of the ancestors. From primary school, continued to middle school, elementary school, throughout. But fast forward, I was also a member of the Ghana Young Pioneers, if you have heard it before. Well,
but we've spoken about it before.
Kwame Nkrumah founded the Ghana Young Pioneers, making sure that young people did not wait till they are old to be leaders.
Yeah.
You were born a leader. So young, and yet you were a pioneer. Look at that, right?
Yeah.
So we were raised to be so patriotic. We were raised to love our culture. We were raised to love our country. This is how I grew up until Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966. I was in middle school. I remember around 16.
Oh.
Yes. And it was an experience because everything was just... Since then, we have never had a youth movement in this country that inculcates. I encourage you to look at the Ghana Young Pioneers motto, something that young people... So in those days, how Nkrumah was able to model. Well, one of the accusations was model the leadership around the Soviet and the Chinese model. But maybe they do something right. See how they behave today.
Yeah.
That love for country. And so from elementary school, in those days, I didn't go to secondary school straight. So technically, I went to school by installment. Do you understand what it means?
No.
To go to school by installment is different from yours. From elementary school to secondary school, high school, and to college. No.
Yeah.
From elementary school, I went to secondary school.
Okay.
But not at the age of 13 or 14 with the common entrance. You know that, right? The common entrance, no. Rather, they will say that you have to get a certificate.
Okay.
So if you're unable to go to secondary school, at least you have a certificate. So I completed what in those days called a standard 7.
Okay.
Standard 7, meaning elementary school, that's 10 years of elementary school. After standard 7, then I went to secondary school. Abetifi Presbyterian Secondary School. But this is where my love for also Presbyterian ministry also begins. In secondary school, as a deacon, as a very important person in the hierarchy in terms of organizing worship services, singing in the choir, I never knew that it was preparing me for also something else.
Yeah.
After secondary school, in those days, 6th form. But after secondary school, my oldest brother was in the US.
Okay.
And after him, 4 females. Next male. So I had to wait, and that was another advantage of heritage. I was my father's walking stick. Meaning, he wouldn't leave home without me. Let's go here. Let's do this. As a farmer, taught me the cocoa tradition here and there. And then late night, coming from the village, we had moved to the town. He taught me the wisdom of the ancestors, even the kind of birds song, the animals, so late night. So everything for me was teaching me the wisdom of the ancestors. Then, after 1 year, I went back to sixth form at Apam Secondary School. Apam Secondary School in the central region near Winneba. And then 2 years secondary school, sixth form. While I was in sixth form, also very involved in the church ministry, something happened. The question was to go straight from the sixth form to university. Or I had developed a love for ministry. So to go to seminary and later on to the undergraduate. It happened that I went to seminary. So straight from sixth form to seminary, Trinity Theological Seminary here in Legon, which is still active. Then trained for ministry for 3 years. And guess what? I was around 25, 26, my first pastoral station in Kumasi. Kumasi Ramsaya Church as a junior minister. But six months later, this call came from my former principal at Trinity College. Say, look, education is something no one can take from you. You are too young to be dabbling there. This is a chance for you. Come back to do your undergraduate. I was mad. I was having so much fun. Young minister. Hey, living my own quarters. He drove from Accra to Kumasi. Reverend Thompson, blessed him. Say, hey, within 2 years after probationer, you're going to be sent to a village. But get your degree. Go as far as you want to go. No one can take that from you. He sat me in his car, brought me back to Legon. The rest is history. After a year, my second year in Legon, in those days we did 3 years. I had a chance to go to Germany as a missionary, taking with me about 25 young Ghanaians. I was then the General Secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana. So I led a group of young people to go tour, those days, West Germany. For about 2 months. That was an eye-opener. Number one, to see how the church functions globally. Number two, leadership, young leadership. I came back to complete my undergraduate in 1981, University of Ghana, and majored in English literature and the scientific study of religions. Having completed in 1981, my brother, who had been in the States for many years, said, come and visit the US and see whether you like it for future study. I went there June 1981 to October 1981. I loved it. I loved it. And so I came back to do my national service. In my national service, I was posted to Abekan Presbyterian Church as the first pastor to go and organize each place. Then, while in the US, we went from place to place applying to schools for future graduate work. By February, boom, I got this letter, Princeton Theological Seminary admission. Voila. How would the church let me go? Because your assignment in this church was about 2 or 3 years. I was pleading and pleading and pleading, knowing that they didn't have to pay anything. It was a full scholarship. They let me go. So I left Ghana in 1982, August 1982, Princeton Seminary, and then for the master's in theological studies. For 2 years. During my second year, my faculty advisor says, you don't usually get such opportunities. So why don't you proceed with a PhD before you go back? It was a tug of war for the church to agree. We sent him for 2 years, no more. After pleading and pleading and pleading from my head of my faculty advisor, they sent a telegram. Let him continue, a letter follows. I think the letter will come tomorrow. It never came. So admissions to Princeton Seminary doctoral program, January passed. And my faculty advisor was so pissed off. Let me use American slang. Pissed off, you know what it means?
Yeah.
Okay. He picked up the phone and called Drew University, the next graduate program. He said, we have a student here for you. And whatever it takes, we have admitting, because it will be very important for the whole church. I remember I was there in the conversation one day. So I went for an interview, took me on. Unfortunately, it was more or less almost reopening. Scholarships had been disbursed.
Yeah.
So I was only blessed with half scholarship tuition with a campus job to pay my expenses. Okay. But I had a church to also pay my expenses for the first year or two, because you have to satisfy that for immigration to also allow you to stay. After the first 2 years, I was broke. 2 kids, and the processes for your wife to work, I was going to get back. I wrote back to the President of Ghana, said, please, I need help. Well, I don't want to tell you some of the things I heard. That we left. But another faculty advisor, Graybill, bless him. Again, the same language. If we are able to support you here, you're going to be useful for the entire church, not only for Ghana. So whatever it takes, I'm going to make sure that you don't go back but continue your program. Guess what, Danama? One afternoon after class, he sat me in his car from church to church in the area. Until one congregation, Morristown Presbyterian Church, also use the same language. We are helping him to help the whole church. They offered me a 3-year scholarship of $30,000.
Oh.
And also made me part of the congregation as an associate, because I was already ordained.
Yeah.
So with that scholarship, I was able to complete my program. But within there was another story. Here was a situation where in those days, the Presbyterian Church of USA was going through some turmoil. Churches were closing. The mainland churches were dwindling. And so they had closed about 6 churches within a year. And there was this particular congregation, they thought with the right leadership, they could revive the fortunes. So my area is sociology, anthropology, all these. So looking at my resume, they invited me for an interview to say whether I could organize an immigrant congregation where English-speaking African people, Caribbean, can come together for church, worship services, and activities. And I said yes. I was still writing my dissertation. It was in 1989. They gave me a 6-month contract, saying if you're able to revive the congregation, you got a job. Otherwise, you close the church, you're out of job. And it was scary.
Yeah.
My first day of the church, there were 10 people. Within 6 months, we had moved up to 54. And they saw there was life. I was also, as a dual career, communication background, I was a communication director for the entire presbytery, publishing newsletters, doing some of the things we were doing, interviews.
Yeah.
And so they said, there's life in the church. So why don't you quit that portion of the communications and then focus on the church? So you can also focus on a dissertation. I agreed. They gave me some good money and went back to the church. Things moved on. After about 2 years, I came back to complete my dissertation. So that delayed my dissertation by a year or 2 years or 3 years. Eventually, graduating in 1994, my PhD. But because of doing all this along the way, it wasn't difficult to also for the church to sponsor me.
Yeah.
In the US, a green card, right? Permanent residence. So the presbytery sponsored me to be a permanent resident. And I continued in the church. Guess what? I was in this congregation for 25 years. Meanwhile, Drew also wanted me to continue teaching. So with my PhD in 1994, the following year, I got my first appointment as assistant professor, 1995. My career path always dual. Seminary professor in those days, and then congregational minister, doing both at the same time. So I was teaching at my career began at seminary, sociology of religion. And then around 1996, I veered towards teaching at the college.
Okay.
So I am very few people who have had a chance to teach at all levels.
There's more ASC Connect after this break. You are now tuned in to the best podcast on the hill.
From all you said, there were specific questions I penned down and some we had before that will take us back to all these experiences. So the first one I want to ask is, how do you reconcile your identity being a Ghanaian with your identity of being a Christian? Because I feel I've been seeing, and I even had to go through this process myself, where you get to the point in your Christianity where you realize things seem kind of odd between your identity as a Ghanaian as well. And from everything you've said, I can tell your identity as a Ghanaian is very strong. So how do you reconcile those two identities? And what would you have to say to people who are going through the journey of finding themselves as African people, as Ghanaian people, who are also dealing with a faith that they find has some contradictions in there? Yeah.
Excellent question. Let me answer it scientifically,
Okay.
not theologically. Here's the point. And as a scholar of religion, I'm a comparative religionist. So if you know religions, then it's not difficult at all. But the problem here, especially Ghanaian Christians, generally African Christians, is that we know so much of our faith with little knowledge of other faiths. Muslims know more of the Bible than we do, and so again and again. But to be specific, missionary education and missionary enterprise in Africa try to negate our Africanness, what Molific Santo would call Africanity.
Yeah.
And so there was a time that to be Christian was to be non-African. That theory is called tabula rasa. Empty slate. If you want to be a Christian, then everything African should be wiped off the slate, because you can't bring anything African into the Christian milieu. My seminary students were mostly North American. Okay. So I raised a question for them. What does an American or a white person, Westerner, lose when they become Christian? It's a smooth transition because it's your culture. So is Christianity a culture or a faith or both? It's a question they don't grapple because more or less it's your culture.
Yeah.
But in our case, there's a kind of cultural imposition, religious imposition. Compare that with Islam. Islam in Africa, over a millennia, remember that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be unto him, was engaging Africa when some of his followers fled to Ethiopia. And so later on, Islam has become a kind of African religion. And that the transition from being African to Islam was not difficult. Take the case of Malams. They are more like the herbalists there. And so back to your question, if you don't know your own Christian religion or theology, then you will think that it is this and that. And when people talk about African religions, they only think about quote-unquote fetish. Something so awful, this and that. But the word fetish itself from Portuguese, fitico, right? Inanimate objects. Do my ancestors really worship inanimate objects? No. The primary belief is that there is a spirit in every living thing. And so nature itself is the autobiography of God.
Yeah.
Yoruba, Olodumare is supreme deity. And nature is a refraction of God. That's why the Yoruba people have the Orishas. Orishas are native deities Ogun, deity of war. Shango, deity of war and thunder, and so on and so forth. And so with these religious ideas, so amazing, that intertwines with our culture. Because I grew up with these, because I have also studied, I don't have any contradiction at all. In fact, my theoretical position is that Africans are primarily what I call trans-religious. We are able to move from one religion to the other without any feeling of contradiction. Okay. But unless and until you force that you have to be this or that, I want to suggest that for African people, it is not a question of either or, rather it is and but also.
Thank you. I like that. Thank you. I think also, just to feed in my own 2 cents, I think also specifically with the Christian faith, if you as someone who desires to truly be Christian, then there's a lot of work you would have to do in learning what you've been taught as culture of the people teaching you, as opposed to what is the true faith, what are you actually learning? Because I think it's very easy to just take whatever you've been told, and you don't have to do hard work with that. You don't have to go back to what does the Bible actually say? What does the Bible not say? What am I being told by the people explaining this faith to me? If you're intentional about it, there's so much you will unlearn and so much you will learn again. And just as you said, the contradictions and, all the transitions that come with, going into the Christian faith as an African, I feel like it's heavily cultural.
Heavily cultural. And so let me pick up from where you left off. Heavily cultural. The question is, I came back to relocate, and what I hear is that when I'm officiating at a wedding on Saturday, and they tell me they are doing the traditional wedding, which you call engagement, in the morning. And then in the afternoon, you come to church. And so for African people today, the question is, why do you have to do the engagement before you go to church to put the mosquito net around your head? And then that becomes marriage.
Yeah.
So again and again, we are trans-cultural, trans-religious. And if you don't take care and be bold enough to say that our ancestors were not that stupid, they knew what they were doing. And rather the younger generation, as my father's village said, more from far dream, young people should also be reasonable, be thoughtful. Then we are also in trouble.
Okay. Thank you so much. The next question I have, this is going back to your youth again, is how did the language shape your childhood experience? And another thing I'm very curious about is, what language do you think in?
I think in the Guan language. Why? Because it was my primary language. My mother died quite early, so I was raised on my father's language. Yeah. And so actually I am more fluent in the Guan language than the Twi language. Okay. If a person who speaks a Num Guan comes here right now, I will stop everything and just, I love the sound of the language. And I keep telling the brother, if you don't know the Guan language, you are not going to heaven. I'm kidding. Okay? Because that's the only language they speak in heaven. So I dream in the Guan language. And that's also my primary language now because I love the language. And that has also shaped my identity for one reason. Where I grew up in elementary school, my father was the only Num Guan person. And so I was made to feel as if there was something wrong with me. I tell you, Twi people can be very, very, very discriminatory. After all, the word Twi, what does it mean? The word Twi means is the only polished language.
Oh, really?
Yes. Every other language is Poto.
That's crazy.
So that kind of arrogance of a country people. Also, as I grew older and the way I was discriminated against because my father spoke a Num made me develop that kind of nationalistic feeling towards the Num language. That today I speak so. My daughter is here visiting from the US and accuses me of not teaching her the Guan language because whenever we meet the Guans and I switch, Papa, why didn't you teach the language? Yeah. So you better start learning Guan.
Why didn't you teach her the language? I'm interested.
Only God knows, but God didn't tell me yet. So switch years.
Okay, what song, food, or ritual brings memories from your childhood back to life? So song or food or like something you do?
When it comes to song, I like the traditional nyonkro, the traditional, all the songs that make you dance, the Adowa dances and this and that. Because I've studied them as an Africanist, and especially the dances, as it were. Also, growing up with the chief, you had to see the moves here and there. I was watching the Asante Hima's funeral recently, and I tell you, I just have fallen in love with all the moves here and there. And so all these make me African through and through. I have a pride in my Africanity, as it were, that I wish young people should begin to understand that there's so much history in your culture.
Okay, and then also going back to Kwame Nkrumah and when you were younger, what do you remember from that period that was like very pivotal in your political worldview, even your religious worldview, but just you being a Ghanaian at that time?
It looks like I have modeled my sensitivities, religious sensitivities, cultural sensitivities, even intellectual sensitivities on Nkrumah's journey. No wonder my major work has been on Nkrumah, and I've published and written a few, and because I never knew that the Young Pioneer movement had a kind of impact on me in coming to also respect and follow his journey. I continue to do that. He made me very proud of being African. That's what the Ghana Young Pioneers. In fact, I learned how to drum. Ghana Young Pioneers. I learned how to dance, and all the cultural things that today is the back burner in elementary schools. It was part of a curriculum that whenever they identified your gift in any way, any African, if you were ever or this and that, you were made to love it. Because Nkrumah modeled what he gave us. I have traveled in the US when I was doing my research at the University of Pennsylvania. Recently, last month, I went and traced his residence when he was doing his master's at the University of Pennsylvania. And I have a picture of standing in front of the house where Nkrumah lived for about 6 years for his master's and then PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. So I traced his journey. And every level, when you go to the University of Pennsylvania, the collections, you will be so proud of being African. When you go to University of Lincoln University today, their main admissions office, the first building is named Azikiwe and Nkrumah Hall. Azikiwe was the one who went there and encouraged Nkrumah to also go there. And so following his journey that way makes me very, very passionate about what Africa lost when Nkrumah was overthrown. I don't say it politically, but practically. Yesterday there was something circulating on the media. What this person did within 7 years. What Nkrumah gave us, from factories to this and that, within 7 years. None of the leaders who have come since Nkrumah have even come close to what he did. So Nkrumah had an impact on me. The way I think, the way I look at Africa in general, and the way I live my life as a Ghanaian today.
So Nkrumah had an impact on you, we can tell from everything you said, but I want you to take us through the book you wrote on him.
I wrote the book on Nkrumah because in my quest to also, during graduate school, I was a interdisciplinary scholar. Christian ethics, scientific study of religion, political science, sociology, anthropology, all these. So my head is not big for nothing, so much stuff in it, right? And so when it came to, during my dissertation, I chose to focus on politics, ethics, and society. And I wanted to do something African, so far political science was concerned. I settled on Kwame Nkrumah, naturally, because I raised a question. He being the first post-independent leader in Ghana, and knowing that Ghana, even today, is or was a disparate ethnic landscape, how would this person bring all these ethnicities together to form a nation. Remember, Ghana had to be built as a nation. European nations were formed. African nations had to be built. And how would Nkrumah build a new nation from disparate ethnic groups from north, south, east, and west? Raising that question, I settled on one thing, that religion is the commonest element that all these ethnic groups have in common. And so Nkrumah, to me, harnessed our religious cultural traditions to meld, M-E-L-D, meld these ethnic groups together. Hence, the title of my book is Kwame Nkrumah, a case study of religion and politics in Ghana. And I discovered, naturally, that Nkrumah himself studied, knew the history and the culture. A few things that young generation would not know. Number one, Nkrumah was not born Kwame. Nkrumah's soul name was Kofi. Kofi Nwia. But how come he came to Kwame Nkrumah? It looks like Kwame Nkrumah at one point had a sense of divinity, a sense of religious aura, spirituality about him. And so wanted to model that element by choosing the word Kwame. Remember, God's name among the accounts is Kwame. Kwame. So identifying that divinization also made him choose that name. That's number one. Number two, Nkrumah was almost nearly becoming a Roman Catholic priest. Yes, went to Amisano, and that when he went to the US too, his first degree was not history, it was in theology. And he became a Presbyterian preacher, nearly becoming a minister. And with that background, he was also very, very concerned and at one point angry at the way missionaries have negated our culture and our religion. And so Nkrumah used religion as a tool to bring Ghanaians together. Because technically, look at around you. We can say anything about each other, but when it comes to our religiosity, there was a commonality among us. Apart from theoretically managing religion that way, his own being became a religious metaphor. For instance, throughout his stay in the US, he wore glasses. As soon as he came back to Ghana in 1947, no one even knew he wore glasses. Rather, he wore contact lenses.
Oh.
Nkrumah's idea was to model himself as a perfect specimen of a human being. Why? Even today, when you're going to choose a chief or a queen, you look at all these things, including if you are a male, if you are circumcised as an Akan, you are disqualified. Circumcision is deformity. Another thing, Nkrumah had a big gap in his teeth. When he came back, he closed the gap to be a perfect specimen of a human being. So all these elements, when I read his autobiography and over my research in Lincoln University, I said, wow, this guy was onto something. And so looking at his religiosity enough, which also colored his politics, we need to go back and see what it meant when one person wanted to build a cathedral for the nation. It was something that I always agonized about, and maybe I poured a good libation that it didn't work. Forgive me.
Okay, so coming back to now, like present day Ghana, what do you think of the landscape? Like with the youth, I wouldn't say everyone is kind of indifferent to patriotism, because we see people going on these protests because they're fighting for what they ought to fight for, their rights and all that. But generally, how do you view the youth of today as opposed to back when you were young and there was this intentionality to bring forth the patriotism of the young people? What do you see that is different, cultural differences?
As a parent, I think that we have not helped our young people to be patriotic. Rather, looks like we are raising all of you to develop a sense of entitlement. And therefore, you want to consume what you have not sown. Everyone thinks abroad, not what Ghana can be. I'm one of them, and that's one reason why I decided to just relocate, because I told myself that I have been there contributing for all these years. I left when I was about my early 30s. Even though I came back any chance I had, I have so much faith in the country. But then, sometimes too, you have to be over there to also appreciate what you have. When you are there and you are in the snow and your mouth is shattering like that, they say, oh, look at the beautiful weather. And so living there almost 40 years made me also develop that love and passion for Ghana. And I would wish that curriculum from elementary school, middle school to high school should have elements of teaching the right history of who we were, rather than always whitewashing. I see some of the curriculum, the history books that is taught in elementary school, and they say, oh Lord, one of them said that Okomfanochi was born in Asante. Says who? Okomfanochi was born here in Ukugwa, and he grew up here in Brekuso. Osetutu was born here in Brekuso. And so all these are germs of history that young people should be taught the right history from your village to elsewhere. That you should believe the Zulus, in trying to really locate their historical traditions, it made them a strong foundation in South Africa. So this is where your generation is missing out. Your parents try to shield you. I try to shield my children from all this, and therefore I ended up, they are not knowing anything about your own history and culture. And I regret.
Taking exactly from there, you've realized the decline in the local languages amongst some of the youth, not all of them, because some people can. Their parents do speak it with them. And do you think this is about colonization or it's a cost of globalization?
All the above, but primarily from colonization. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the Kenyan author who died recently, refused at one point to write in English. He wrote in Kikuyu, just to encourage the younger generation. He said you can translate every work into English. So primary language. And so you asked me the question of what language I dream in. I said, Guan language. And so we may have to really make that conscious effort. Our languages are dying actually. Do you know that until the 70s, the people of Krobo, Nana Azumate Kole, made sure that the first 4 years of elementary school there was Krobo language. You pick up as English is the easiest language to learn. But our local languages are very difficult languages, but they are respectful cultural languages. And so I would rather we begin with these local languages. Tell me a Japanese who doesn't speak Japanese. Tell me a Chinese. But how come we don't even know our basic languages? Rather, we have all our textbooks written in English. A Japanese reading the textbook in English? No. And so I would say that it begins with our education. The colonial impact has been, remember that the colonial period was not that long, but the impact has been so deep. The way we eat, our dressing, everything here. But we have to make that intentional effort to say that it has not made us good Africans, rather negated who we are. Why don't we begin to think about it and do better?
Okay, that's true. Okay, but before I move on to like the last set of questions, very light questions, can you please tell the parents that will be watching to be speaking the local languages to their children, else to just die off? Parents.
Our ancestors have said that even if you don't like your gun, that is all you've got to lick. We see a child da. And what out of? Let's begin there. Instead of saying, "Oh, me banana there on tree," what to make the bad?
Yeah.
I made that mistake. So at one point, I brought my two kids to come study here in Ghana. They went to Achimota School in St. Peter's. They speak fluent Tree, and I'm always proud that I made that decision. My oldest daughter went when about 2 years old, and at home, because we're mostly in boarding school here and there, we didn't really enforce it. And one of the regrets I have, as it were. So parents. It is not just a language. It is culture, it is history, it is religious. That to respect our languages and encourage our young people to embrace these languages will be the foundation of patriotism also here in Ghana.
Yeah, because there's so much, as you said, there's so much culture. And again, because the Ghanaian landscape is very oral. So there's so much to be learned from the languages.
Yes, it is not just a language.
Yeah.
It's all the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's more ASC Connect after this break. You are now tuned in to the best podcast on the hill.
Something interesting we didn't touch on, which I found interesting at least, your prison education at Rutgers.
Yes, I came to that through my faculty department. So I was then the acting director of what we call Pan-African Studies. And the state of New Jersey has this program for prisoners, that your time in prison should be useful. If you are seriously, people are in prison, by the time they come out, they have their bachelors or masters. And I was teaching African and African American history. And for about 4 years, something I really loved doing. And some of my students have graduated now in very, very important jobs and happy, very productive time in my life. Yeah.
Is there anything specific that stuck with you during that time?
Well, the way that people go to prison, not so much because they are quote unquote, not necessarily because they are bad, but circumstances may bring you to situations where you don't.
Yeah.
And so it also gave me the chance to exercise my pastoral side, counseling here and there. So it was a dual career thing came up. I was a professor at the same time. I was counselor, and that stood out for me that people may go there not so much because they are evil or they are criminals, but circumstances may bring you to where you didn't want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're about to wrap up, so we'll just do some light-hearted questions. What's your favorite Ghanaian dish?
I think apapransa, my favorite. And not just apapransa. If you want to really enjoy apapransa, go to the Hubochocho Festival in Anlo State, Keta, or among the Adan people, they are also very good at that. And I have a craving for apapransa all the time. When someone says I'm going to bring apapransa, I clap. But next to that will be Poto Nyoma, raised as an Eguan, a Numguan. My ancestors' food, and my father raised me on that too. So apapransa number 1, Poto number 2, fufu may be number 3.
With what soup?
Fufu and soup with okra on the side, maybe not gold lai soup, but Ochin lai soup.
Okay. All right. And a book that changed your life? Like 2 books.
Kwame Nkrumah's, the title is Kwame Nkrumah, the autobiography of, it's a Ghana, the autobiography of Kwame Nkrumah. And that title is also telling. Ghana is the autobiography of Kwame Nkrumah. Right, that's the title. And then the other book, W.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk, which talks about emancipation in the USA, but also tells our story, the way, and he makes a very important statement that the problem of the 20th century will be the problem of the color race, racism, as a problem of the 20th century, which has manifested itself. Remember, Du Bois died in Ghana, buried here in cantonments, and he was a prophet for us as African people of African descent, and seeing how the world would treat us. As Achebe would say, if you're an African, the world is turned upside down. The space given to us is so small that we are always struggling with the world and among ourselves. So again, Ghana, the autobiography of Kwame Nkrumah, and so the souls of black folk by W.B. Du Bois.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, Professor. It was lovely having this conversation with you.
And thank you for having me.
Is there anything you want to say in Guan to the audience?
Dear New Year to you, how are you all? Meaning thank you. From the Guan say, meaning I wish you good life and good health. That's thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.